Higher education is the sponsor of this enormous entertainment industry. It's building that industry on the backs of an unrecognized labor force.
College football season has returned, and with it, the debate over paying college athletes.
They're already among the brightest sports stars, bringing in millions for their schools and TV. So why not pay student athletes?
Last year, the NCAA made $1 billion in revenue, but the organization continues to resist paying student athletes because they say it would undermine the idea of amateurism.
These are our students, and they will be students, and they will play these games around the concept of collegiate athletics or amateurism.
Well, the term the student athlete's actually a fiction. It was created to obscure the fact that the NCAA knew that it had created a pay-for-play system.
That's Dr. Ellen Staurowsky, a sport management professor at Drexel University. Staurowsky has studied the issue of pay-for-play for years and was once a student athlete herself.
When you look at how amateurism is constructed within the NCAA, you find that it's really a floating definition. It's a definition of convenience that changes over time. The NCAA has 3 different divisions, and there are different definitions of amateurism for each one of those divisions.
Popular opinion seems to be shifting in favor of pay-for-play. A recent Reason Root poll shows that 64% of Americans think college athletes should receive some portion of revenue generated by the use of their likeness. But if we're going to pay student athletes, how do we begin to determine their worth in a fair market?
When Ramogi Huma and I started out to do these series of studies, there was no real discussion about what the potential market value of a college football and men's basketball player might be. And so we looked out at the landscape and we said, well, what would give us at least some sense of what that value would be? And it seemed reasonable that we would go to the professional associations where there's a revenue sharing mechanism in place. And so we looked at the NFL and we looked at the NBA.
Working with the National College Players Association, Staurowsky produced one of the first reports looking at the potential worth of college football and basketball players.
We looked at what the revenue sharing would be in the NFL, for example, where players receive 46.5% of the revenue generated. And we applied that formula to major college football programs. And what you see, if you look at a school like Ohio State, for example, Ohio State in 2013-2014 brought in approximately $63 million. If you apply that 46.5% in terms of revenue sharing, that comes out to about $359,000 per player. While their athletic scholarship is valued at about $27,000, their actual value is about over $300,000, and over the course of 4 years, that translates into about $1.2 million per player. But I think in general, if we're looking at college football players for the years 2013, 2014, the average value of a college football player would be about $110,000 across all Division I football playing schools.
And sure, college athletes probably shouldn't be paid the same rate as a professional, but Staurowsky argues the two markets aren't that far apart.
We can look at the top 5 conferences, the Power 5, as they're called. And not only is it just an institutional investment in those football programs, we have enormous corporate investment, corporate entities that build some part of their business on those games. So we have ESPN with their empire, which has built several of their channels quite specifically on college football. We have Nike as an industry that uses college football to market its apparel and its footwear. All of those industries have a slice of the labor that is going on the field. And so if we begin to really look at the expanse of money that is out there, the question isn't so much for me whether or not the industry can afford to pay athletes. It's just a matter of when there will be a recognition of the vast amount of profit that is being generated in all of these other sectors, and for people to understand that there really is money out there to do it.
While the money may be there to do it, the NCAA has been slow to make any changes. This inaction has led to a multitude of lawsuits challenging the power structure of the organization, along with Northwestern football's historic bid to unionize.
In terms of the issue of unionization, I think that it is important that athletes be recognized in the profit sports as employees, because within the way in which their reality exists on campus, they are in another region where they are really not employees, nor are they students. And as a result of that, they have no portal to actually gain access to their rights. When an athlete comes on campus, they're told that they are playing as a matter of privilege, not as a right. And because it's a privilege, they can then agree to give up all manner of rights. So the athletic department may impose all kinds of rules related to their conduct. And then the school slowly but surely begins to strip away their rights to due process and other things like that. Now, having said all of that, are there going to be issues associated with unionization? Absolutely. But what that opens the door to is it opens the door to the possibility of collective bargaining. And that is something that would help athletes tremendously because they would then have a mechanism of advocacy, and they would also have control over the rules that have been governing their lives.
Though the National Relations Labor Board recently refused to take up the Northwestern case, the NCAA responded to the suit by enacting major policy reforms that will increase a college athlete's scholarship to cover the full cost of attendance. Staurowsky will have to update her figures thanks to the new bylaw, but she says this example is exactly why an outside advocacy group representing the interests of student athletes is needed in the reform effort.
We know that this is a starting point in the conversation. We know that it isn't a be-all and end-all, but we also know that our estimate is far more representative of the kind of inequities that exist in the system than simply just accepting that the scholarship is the only measure.